The Pope's speech, New Goals for America. The Pope's speech to Congress has given us a sorely needed spiritual direction. He told us the purpose of America is to satisfy common needs by stimulating the growth of all its members. What are the common needs of Americans? How can they be met? How do we stimulate the growth of Americans? Do our institutions meet real human needs? Do they stimulate the growth of Americans? We need a discussion about how to achieve those goals. He indicated it is just legislation which gives the nation a sense of unity. If we are so disunited as a people, what has been the unjust legislation that has led to that result? How do we fix it? The models the Pope held up to us for how to renew our values were Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, Dorothy Day, and Thomas Merton. I heard a guest on Meet the Press call Dorothy Day and Thomas Merton radicals. Now, if the Pope, the spiritual leader of the Catholic Church, is holding Dorothy Day and Thomas Merton up as models, I think that indicates America needs to reverse its values. Who the people of the status quo think of as radicals personify, according to the spiritual leader of the Catholic Church, the values we should be moving toward and what we think of as the status quo. Bigger and bigger military budgets, continuous war, unbridled capitalism, by a spiritual yardstick, are really the radical positions. The Pope called on us to reject imitating the hatred and violence of tyrants and murderers. The measure of the rightness of our actions, according to the spiritual leader of the Catholics, is, does it promote hope and healing, peace and justice? If we want to be a righteous society again, we must look at our structures and actions to see if they meet this demand. The Pope instructed us to have respect for our differences. Only new policies and a new social consensus, according to the spiritual leader, can heal our world. The Pope told us that our politics cannot be a slave to the economy and finance. He told us the mean by which we seek to live should be the golden rule. If we want security, let us give security. If we want life, let us give life. If we want opportunities, let us provide opportunities. The yardstick we use for others will be the yardstick which time will use for us. The Golden Rule also reminds us of our responsibility to protect and defend human life at every stage of its development, the Pope said. Now is the time for courageous actions and strategies aimed at implementing a culture of care, the Pope said, and an integrated approach to combating poverty, restoring dignity to the excluded, and at the same time protecting nature. He called on us to limit and direct technology and to devise intelligent ways of developing and limiting our power, and to put technology at the service of another type of progress, one which is healthier, more human, more social, more integral. He said our academic and research institutions could help us to do this. He held up Thomas Merton as a model to help free us from the violence and selfishness we are born with. Thomas Merton, the model he held up for us, challenged the certitudes of his time. The Pope told us he was a man of dialogue and a promoter of peace. Being at the service of dialogue and peace also means being truly determined to minimize and in the long term to end the many armed conflicts throughout our world, the Pope said. The Pope went on, here we have to ask ourselves, why are deadly weapons being sold to those who plan to inflict untold suffering on individuals and society? Sadly, the answer, we all know, is simply for money. Money that is drenched in blood, often innocent blood. In the face of this shameful and culpable silence, it is our duty to confront the problem and to stop the arms trade. The Pope gave us his definition of a great nation. A nation can be considered great when it defends liberty, as Lincoln did, when it fosters a culture which enables people to dream of full rights for all their brothers and sisters, as Martin Luther King sought to do, when it strives for justice and the causes of the oppressed, as Dorothy Day did by her tireless work, the fruit of a faith which becomes dialogue and sows peace in the contemplative style of Thomas Merton. It isn't enough to have throngs in the street greeting the Pope. We must put his spiritual message into action to give our country a more spiritual direction. Our goals must be to meet the common needs of Americans and to stimulate their growth, to change unjust legislation which has caused our disunity, to stop imitating the hatred and violence of tyrants and murderers, to look at our structures and actions to see if they promote hope and healing, peace and justice, to have respect for differentness, to forge new policies and a new social consensus, to no longer make our politics the slave to the economy and finance, to start living by the golden rule. If we want security, let us give security. If we want life, let us give life. If we want opportunities, let us provide opportunities. The yardstick we use for others will be the yardstick which time will use for us. The Golden Rule also reminds us of our responsibility to protect and defend human life at every stage of its development. To create a culture of care, an integrated approach to combating poverty, restoring dignity to the excluded, and at the same time protecting nature. To limit and direct technology and to devise intelligent ways of developing and limiting our power, and to put technology at the service of another type of progress, one which is healthier, more human, more social, more integral. To involve academic and research institutions in helping us to achieve these goals. Like Thomas Merton, we need to challenge the certitude of our time and to stand for freeing ourselves from violence and selfishness and promoting peace and dialogue. America will only be great again when we stand for liberty, justice, dialogue, and peace, when it creates a culture of caring. That's the message of the Pope.